All right, peace, y'all. It's your girl TT. I am back for part two of the June-July 2010 issue of Vibe magazine. Title of the article is "The Mystery of Puff's Daddy" by Aaliyah S. King, and the illustrations are by an artist named Pell. Sean Diddy Combs pushes music, fashion, fragrance, and vodka, but his father pushed a different kind of product until the day one of his gangster friends took him for a ride. Vibe investigates the murder of Melvin Combs. Go back and look at my part one. It's a 10-minute long video of the first part of this article, and we're picking up on part two. Let's go. Willie Abraham was the mastermind of a heroin ring that reportedly brought $5 million a year beginning in the mid 1960s, distributing 2,000 kilograms throughout New York and New Jersey. According to news reports, Abraham had an Italian connection. He allegedly got his heroin from Alphonse Sisca and Benjamin Castellazzo, members of the mafia. Castellazzo? It looks Italian, so maybe it's Castellazzo. Castellazzo! Let's go with that. Abraham's crew consisted of nearly a dozen men and women. His principal associates were Robert Hoke, Errol Holder, and an ex school teacher from Mount Vernon named Walter Grant. Although reports from the time are not specific about Melvin's rank in the organization, he was clearly more than just a rank and file street dealer. Even if he wasn't the ruler his son would later believe he was. Before he began running with Abraham and his crew, Melvin met and befriended none other than Frank Lucas, who was memorially portrayed by Denzel Washington in the 2007 film American Gangster, who liked him immediately and was briefly in business with him. Anybody that didn't like Melvin just didn't like people, says Lucas. He was that type of guy, top of the line. Can't remember where I first met Melvin, he adds. Might have been at some nightclub, but we became partners before I even started going overseas. We did a few things together. I knew Melvin very well. Soon, Melvin was solely working with Willie Abrams' crew. Within the organization, there were several high level partners operating as wholesale distributors, selling heroin to other dealers. Others operated a cutting and packing mill, preparing product for street dealers. Abraham's crew was tight knit. Some of the girlfriends and wives were involved directly with the operation, managing the mill girls, arranging meetings, and even being directly responsible for moving product. But Janice Combs had nothing to do with her husband Melvin's business. She was a polished young woman who sponsored fashion shows in Harlem. One of her shows, Elegance in Autumn, offered a French poodle as a door prize, and the name Mrs. Melvin Combs appeared in several society pages in the Amsterdam news throughout the 60s. But like most hustlers, Melvin also had a ride or die chick on the side, a then 22-year-old Cassandra Sullivan was listed in court documents as Melvin's girlfriend, who was allegedly involved in the operations, though charges against her were later dropped. Little light skinned girl, says Helton, was not a part of Abraham's crew but stayed close to Melvin. I remember her. Cute girl, but Melvin had a lot of girls. We all did. Back when all you needed was penicillin to clear something up. Melvin was officially living the fast life. He was outfitted in furs and suits on a daily basis, drove his Cadillac around town, dipped in and out of local Harlem spots with his wife or his girlfriend, depending on the time of day. You brought the wife and kids out during the day, explains Helton, and then you bring your girl out at night. Hustlers either have very bad memories or just don't care because it's the rare dealer who escapes the consequences of a career in crime. Melvin's crew would be no exception. In late 1971, after wiretaps had been installed on the home phones of many of the crew members, Willie Abraham, Errol Holder, Robert Hoke, and Walter Grant were all arrested. All would later be convicted of violating the Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act of 1970 and given sentences ranging from 10 to 20 years in federal prison. A month later, Melvin was arrested in an apartment he kept in Yonkers. According to news reports, police found him with a large quantity of narcotics, a revolver, and a large amount of cash. He was killed 2 weeks later. And this is where the difficult question needs to be asked. Melvin's childhood friends and business associates look away, scratch their heads, and shrug their shoulders when asked the obvious question. Did Melvin snitch on his crew after he got arrested? Seems more than just a coincidence that he was killed while sitting in the driver's seat of his own car so soon after he was arrested. He had been named as a co conspirator in the Abraham case. While none of the news reports make any mention of cooperation on Melvin's part, it's possible that he may have spoken to authorities after his arrest about what he knew. And even if he didn't, it's possible that he could have been killed to avoid what he might say when he dealt with his legal issues. That's bullshit, says Frank Lucas. Melvin wasn't that kind of guy. No way. He wasn't saying shit. Lucas, who had gone away by the time Combs was killed, says that when he heard the news, he was devastated. They did the wrong thing when they killed Melvin, says Lucas. If I had been around, a whole lot of people would have got hurt over that one. When asked if he knows who was responsible, okay, there's a um, there's a print error on this. It looks like it was like double printed over, so it's not really legible what it says. It says, when asked if he knows who was responsible for the crime, Lucas just grunts. I hope that's what it says. I ain't giving no names, but whoever it was, I heard he got it back. Back in the Bronx, Claude Helton exhales. He stares out of the window and then runs a hand over his face, lifts his cap, and then replaces it. He's not used to talking about the past, not used to being interviewed. He loves to reminisce, but not like this. Not with a recorder on, not with old stories, but with the old stories that stick with you. And eventually, they are told. I know who killed Melvin, he says, his face weary but relieved as he speaks on Melvin's death publicly for the first time. He was a friend of mine, friend of Melvin's too. Helton was sent to Lewisburg Federal Prison in 1972 on a drug conviction. There, he met up with an old friend, Walter Grant. Grant was the ex school teacher from Mount Vernon who was Willie Abrams' right hand man. Walter told me that he parked his car on 106 in Central Park West and then took a cab to the Gold Lounge a little further downtown. Then he called Melvin and told him to come pick him up. Melvin had no idea what was about to happen. Melvin picked him up. Grant told him to drive him to his car, told him to pull up, park right behind his car. Helton holds up his hand, makes a gun with his thumb and forefinger, holds it to his temple. He told me, he took out his piece and said, Melvin, you got this coming to you. And that was it. Shot him dead. Got out the car, got into his own car, peeled out. According to Helton, Grant was convinced that Melvin had either ratted out his crew after his arrest or planned to. Frank Lucas believes that just the chatter about Melvin's arrest led to his death. I think someone shot their mouth off about something they didn't know what they were talking about. People were just imagining things and talking crazy. Got him killed. I read about it in the paper, said Wallace Hassan, Melvin's childhood friend. I was hurt, but I wasn't surprised. This was the life he chose. Elbert Dean, his former neighbor, saw Melvin a few months before his death. He was on 7th Avenue, near the Gold Lounge, he said. I'm having my birthday party. Come in, have a drink. But I was a Muslim by then, selling my Muhammad Speaks. Told him I couldn't do that, so he said, here's my number. I got a place in Yonkers now. Call me so we can get together. I never saw him again. Hassan blames Melvin's easygoing personality for his violent death. He was too trusting, he says. He trusted those guys in that field. You can't do that. Janice Combs remained in Harlem for several years before relocating to Mount Vernon. According to Helton, Walter Grant was killed in Mount Vernon years after Melvin's death. While Diddy discovered the truth about his father's past as a drug dealer, it's unknown if he ever heard the rumors surrounding his father's death. Both Diddy and his mother declined to comment for this piece. But as he began to climb up the music industry ranks, he continued to search for more details about his mysterious father. And at the same time, his father's childhood friends and business associates began to find out that Melvin's boy had gone on to do big things. Albert Dean went on to raise a family in Westchester County area. His sons, Joaquin Y. Dean and Darren D. Dean, would go on to found Rough Riders. When his sons were new in the business, someone told Albert that Melvin's boy was also in the music industry. Dean arranged to meet Diddy, who was then working at Uptown Records. I came to talk to him about my sons, but of course, Sean wanted to know everything I could tell him about his father as well. I told him everything I could remember. It was clear that he had a real hunger for any information. I remember he was even carrying around this framed 8 by 11 photograph of his dad in his bag. He pulled it out, showed it to me. Claude Helton put the connection together between Melvin and Diddy while he was locked up in the mid-90s on a parole violation. Me and this young boy got to talking, he says, and he was telling me about a guy named Combs. Now, that's a rare name, so I instantly thought of Melvin. When I got out, I saw him on television, and of course, I knew right away who he was. The boy looks just like the boy looks just the same as he did back in Harlem. When his son was born, Melvin would often have his baby boy with him at some of the hot spots in Harlem. 3 places you could see Melvin with Sean back then, says Helton: the Gold Lounge, Shalimar, or Smalls. He'd be holding them, showing them off. When he got a bit older, he'd be standing right there with him, trying to walk. That boy looked just like his daddy. Puffy got this video, the one he made for Biggie, he says. He's dancing around singing that Every Breath You Take song. Every time I see that video, I think of Melvin. That's great. Knowing what we know now about that song and situation, that's crazy. Anyway, every time I see that video, I think of Melvin. That's him right there. He would do that same exact dance when we'd be in the nightclubs. Throw his hands up, make that same exact face. It's crazy. Everything about them is exactly the same, from their style to their smile. Melvin Combs' brief run in the streets will never be made into an American gangster style biopic or biopic. But if it weren't for their son, Melvin's story, like many others before and after him, would be little more than a footnote. But the well coiffed pretty boy with the arms held high foot shuffle dance lives on in the son he left behind. One can only wonder what Melvin would make of his son's success. When asked if he may have traded in the street life as he got older, Frank Lucas laughs a long, throaty laugh. Who, Melvin? Hell no. Much as Melvin loved money, Lucas laughs again. The way he loved money, he'd have just as much money today as his son got, maybe more. Okay, y'all, that is the end of that article. Um, I would love to hear your thoughts about this video as well as the entire article itself. Um, and let me know if y'all want to see the illustrations on this because they're pretty nice. I know y'all do, but engagement, okay? Come on, talk to us, sister. All right, TT Talks.